I've always heard, though, is the cyber threat in large part is much more of a diplomacy issue than anything else, as we're seeing now more and more state-sponsored acts of terrorism. How have you seen that part of it evolve as well?
Complicated answer, but nation states, and I'll name them, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, are very capable adversaries in the cyberspace. They can disrupt critical infrastructure. We know that, and we've seen attributable attacks from them. But we also know intelligence services use covert action and covert campaigns to impact the United States or show us they have those capabilities. Russia comes to mind in this space, and their relationships with criminal organizations that are associated with their national security intelligence apparatus. So, we have to look at it this very closely: is what are the capabilities of adversaries? Have intelligence services train criminal organizations that capability? And then how can they attack the homeland, and what nodes are U.S. corporations in the U.S., and I say the homeland, or any U.S. corporation abroad, and where are the vulnerabilities that there, and how do we mitigate it? But it goes to something you brought up, is how does the insurance industry underwrite that risk? And what do they require of the corporations or businesses, or from a personal lines, my personal self, my residents, how do they protect us, and how do they price that? And I think that's the question I have for you is, again, understanding the threat and the risk and the capabilities of adversaries, and then how do you write for or set requirements to have personal security or good personal hygiene, personal cyber hygiene for a business or your own personal self? And how does the industry see that space and the evolution? Because like 9/11, a huge catastrophic event occurred, and then some pricing models came in after for the insurance industry. I'd hate to see major events occur and then something's after that, because I think we all know the risk is there. So Sean, what's your thoughts on that from the insurance industry's perspective on the cyber risk and underwriting?
Well, insurance is an industry that's built on protecting critical infrastructure, is the term that you've used and you're more familiar with. And as you well know, most of our critical infrastructure is not in the government, it's in the private sector. And in order for that infrastructure to be protected, they need insurance. And so the insurance industry touches every single part of our economy. I mentioned earlier about real estate and construction and what the impact was there on 9/11. Again, that impact shut down those industries at a time. It shows you the power of it. And that also then is worrisome as we think about cyber terrorism for insurance, because it's evolving. And we've got capital on hand for protecting what I would call your traditional type of events. But with cyber, we're learning every day, and it's changing every day. And that is where it becomes worrisome for insurers. We've got large amounts of capital on hand, but if you have an event and something, I personally worry about if a cyber event were to be as large as what we've seen, for example, in a pandemic, where it's touching so many different economies at the same time. That's where it becomes worrisome, because that's where it can become largely uninsurable. That's why a pandemic is largely uninsurable. Even we talked earlier about 9/11, and 9/11 being something that every American, we were in Colorado, you and I were in Colorado at the time, but we felt the impact of it. But from an economic standpoint, really only New York and Washington, D.C. felt those impacts at that time in terms of economy. And those were cities, not just even whole states. But then you look at something like a pandemic or a large cyber event, even what we saw most recently with the oil pipeline shutdown, you saw several different economies being impacted at the same time. Now, if they're terrorist events, cyber terrorist events that have a larger impact, this is where it becomes worrisome for insurers, because it's then not limited by time and geography, and that can be worrisome. Even this ransomware as an evolution of cyber attacks, we're seeing it has increased now 500% in the last 2 years. So certainly we're paying attention to that, and we're trying to understand. Again, we're a data-driven industry. How do we evolve with this? So certainly cyber is something that we are underwriting in some ways, but we're also making sure that we're understanding how this is evolving, and it certainly is.